Hi, Rich Carrubba for bowlingball.com. Let's talk about, should bowling become an Olympic sport? Well, we've got an editorial article posted in the Bowlversity section of our bowlingball.com website. If you want to read it, we'd like you to read it, because below it you can enter your comments and your opinions. We'd like you to share your thoughts about bowling and the Olympics. If you wish to do so, just simply go click on Bowlversity button, click on the box that has editorials in it, select that particular link. Should bowling become an Olympic sport? Read the article, because there'll be some things in there that I won't paraphrase today in this speech that I'm giving you, or this video, but I might add a couple of other thoughts that I had. I did compose the article. All I want to do is get your ideas and thoughts about it. I'm passionate about bowling. I would love to see it in the Olympics, but I don't think it's ever going to happen, and certainly not in the next 25 to 40 years. And I feel pretty strongly about that. I think the industry did make a push years ago. It was a demonstration sport in 1988 Summer Games in Seoul, Korea. Yes, it did. And in fact, there was 20 nations that participated. There was even medals awarded to several of the countries. But the industry lobbied long and hard to get it to that status, but it never could overcome becoming a regular part of the Olympic Games. Plainly and simply, it's politics and money. Politics and money to thrust bowling into the Olympics is just not there. Now let's take a look at some other reasons why it's probably not there. One, we've seen a decline in the number of sanctioned league bowlers in the United States from 9 million to 2 million over the last 2 or 3 decades. That's probably a reason. We're not seeing growth. Bowling is not in a growth industry. We're not seeing new bowling centers constructed around the world as frequently as we would like to see. In fact, golf, for example, as a sport to compare to, just got invited into the Olympic Games scheduled for 2016 Summer Games in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. They're going to build a golf course for that at that venue for the Olympics for golf. Well, you think they'd build a bowling center just for the Olympics? I don't think so. First of all, bowling centers, we're closing a lot of centers in the United States, as example. The value of the real estate is just too much commercially to support bowling. Doesn't turn enough money. A lot of these older bowling centers have been replaced by condominium developments or other commercial developments, and we've all seen bowling centers in our communities go away. Now, there remain a few, and there might have been a few new constructions recently, but not as many are planned as certainly as we'd like to see. The economy, people, less and less families can afford to continue bowling. And certainly in third world countries, even if bowling centers were constructed, it would be difficult for families to afford to take kids bowling, to sustain enough business to make the businesses continue to grow and be profitable so they could operate successfully. So there's too many challenges really for bowling to get enough of worldwide impact to embrace it and be considered as an Olympic sport. And naturally, if it doesn't have that thrust or impetus behind it, it won't have it financially from corporate sponsors and corporate backing. Back to golf for a second. Heck, the commissioner, Tim Finchin, said that he believes what golf's going to accomplish being in the Olympics is that there would be a significant boost to popularity and perception of the game, number one. And number two, essentially, he's paraphrased as saying it would bring the world of golf together to work as an initiative, and the benefits would accrue to the game from inclusion of golf in the Olympic sport. And that's certainly going to help any sport. If bowling got into the Olympics, it would be a huge boost for it to be exposed. It would want to make athletes in all countries of the world train to be bowlers in hopes of making the Olympic team. It would just be one more opportunity, because everyone isn't gifted in track and field or swimming or cycling or wrestling or any of the summer game sports typically that we see on television every 4 years. Also, it's difficult for the people to get familiar in different countries with bowling, because you don't see as many bowling centers in third world countries. They're expensive to construct and expensive to operate. Whereas youngsters can get exposed to these other type of sports that don't require a lot of financial investment. You can swim as long as you got a body of water you can practice. You can run as long as you got a field somewhere to run. If you got a bicycle, you can practice cycling. I could go on and on. There's other sports like that we can make comparisons to that require less capital involvement for youngsters to get to train and to become have the exposure regardless of where they live. but not bowling. It's very difficult. So therefore, even with the impact of professionals in the Olympic sports over the last several decades, I think 1984, they finally brought American professionals into basketball, and every Olympics since then in the summer games, we've had a professional basketball team, so to speak, to compete against professional teams from other countries. And even then, we don't always win, so it's become a professional undertaking in the Olympics, whereas years ago it was purely amateur. But without the best players and most recognizable figures, bowling and the Olympics certainly will not be financially successful. Corporations put their money up where they know there's a return on investment, and there is not for bowling. It's that simple. Well, I'd love to see bowling rise in stature. We've tried to have professionals compete in from other sports, other American sports, compete in professional bowling tournaments, for example. Give you some examples in past years. San Francisco Giants pitcher John the Count Montefusco, maybe some of you remember that name, competed in a PBA Tour event. One of my friends from many years ago, Larry Seipel, who was a punter for the Miami Dolphins in 1972 Super Bowl championship team, he competed in a PBA event in Miami. I think Jerome Bettis from the world champion Pittsburgh Steelers competed in a PBA event. And I think even more recently, Chris Paul from the NBA competed in some type of event where the PBA pros were involved. Whether it was a regular tour event or not, I don't recall. But nevertheless, we've tried to link with other sports to help increase the popularity and the legitimacy of bowling. But Madison Avenue has never embraced bowling fully and wholly. And because of the lack of money, because of the decline in, not popularity, but the decline in people bowling, and particularly people competing in league play, for example, in this country, over the last, say, 2 decades or so, for those reasons, I believe that bowling will never make it to the Olympic sports. I believe it's a legitimate sport, despite what people debate and say bowling's not a sport. I've heard it on talk shows. I've heard talk show hosts knock bowling, but yet would they want to go out and compete with PBA champions? I don't think so. They'd be pretty humiliated and embarrassed. It's not an easy sport to do or excel in well, but it's a very easy game to go play recreationally, whereas golf is a little more difficult, or tennis and so on, just for any recreational player to get to play to a reasonable standard. But to get to the top levels in competition of any sport, bowling included, it's very difficult. So I think bowling is legitimately a sport. I would love to see it in the Olympic Games, but sadly, I don't think it's ever going to happen. It will not become an Olympic sport. Well, folks, that's my opinion. I'm interested to find out what's yours.